Hello, in this lesson we are going to cover the structure of a block in blockchain. And by learning this, you'll become evident why it's called blockchain. You'll have a greater understanding of blockchain and you'll serve as a good basis going forward, whether you're using blockchain technologies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, something else, something outside of currency, whatever that may be. So the basic structure of a block in blockchain is like this. There are four sections, and the first section is the block size, and the block size is just, well, the size of the block in bytes. Simple stuff. We have the block header, and this is essentially where the meat of the block is, or quite a lot of meat, and this actually is formed of several fields. We'll cover that in a moment. Then we have the transaction counter, which is just how many transactions there are in this block. And then finally we have the transaction. So all the transactions that are being processed within this block of blockchain. So like I said, the block header is formed of several fields and they are very, very interesting fields. And let's cover those amazing and awesome fields right here. So there are 6 fields. So let's just divide that in half. We have 3 there, and we have 3 here. So the first field is the version, and the version is just essentially a number to track the software protocol upgrades. Next, we have the previous block hash, and this is just a hash of the entire previous block. This will become a bit more evident exactly what this is in a moment. We have a Merkle root, and the Merkle root is a hash of the root of a Merkle tree, which we'll cover in a separate video exactly how a Merkle tree works, and it's of all the blocks transactions. So all of these transactions here are pumped into a Merkle tree, and this produces, so all these go into a Merkle tree and it comes out with a Merkle root. If one of the transactions were to be modified, changed, removed, so any change to the overall transactions were to occur, then this Merkle tree would result in a different Merkle root hash. Really should put hash here so it's a bit more obvious that it's, well, a hash. Next, we have a timestamp. I think you can guess what this is. This is just a approximate creation time of the block. If you're interested, it's in seconds from Unix epoch time. Next, we have the difficulty target, and the difficulty target is essentially a proof of work algorithm difficulty target for this block. Finally, we have a nonce, and you might be thinking, oh, is that even a real thing? Yes, it's a word in the English language, and on top of that, it's a fundamental concept in cryptography. The nonce is essentially a random number, a counter, used for the proof of work algorithm. So it's just a random number which just helps to prove the algorithm. That's all. So this is some pretty cool stuff. Now let me show you how multiple blocks link together. Now that we've actually seen the overall structure, let's go to a higher level view. So imagine if we have, and I'll put a bigger space between it, we have 3 blocks. The number of blocks doesn't actually matter. And in these blocks, we are going to have 4 sections. Again, this is just a very simplification of what you've already seen above. So all of these blocks contain the information from above as well. And within these sections, so the things we are concerned with is the previous hash, the time stamp, the random, nonce, the root hash, and linked to this we have all of our transactions, and the transactions, I'm going to keep it simple and just put some squiggly lines. So these are all our transactions, our awesome blockchain transactions, and the way they link together is actually not only simple but very cool. You take the hash of the previous block and that forms the previous hash. So that's how they are linked together. You can think of this as a chain. I'll try to draw a chain here. So when blocks are chained together, that's how blockchain gets its name, blockchain. So we have the previous hash here, we have the timestamp, the random nonce, the root hash. It's the same thing for this one. And again, the entire block's hash forms the previous hash. So that is the structure of a block. You might have one question in your mind, and that is, what about this second block in blockchain? The first block, the first block in blockchain, where does that get its previous hash from? And that is called the Jenny, I believe I spelled Genesis wrong. So Genesis block, and this is statically created just as the starting point. So this Genesis block sounds so awesome. Genesis block. Genesis block. I think I spelled Genesis wrong. Is it E? I think it's E. Either way, you get the picture. It's called Genesis. And the Genesis block has everything that our block here has, and obviously what all of this has as well if you look at it from a more in-depth point of view. But the only 2 things that it doesn't have is the previous hash. So the previous hash field is just left blank. The other fields, so the timestamp, that has a bunch of data in there. The next 2 fields, the random nonce, has a bunch of data in there. The root hash has a bunch of data in there. And then, let me do this in a different color. The transactions are also non-existent. So we have no transaction, and this is just empty. So this is a Genesis block. This is the first block in any blockchain implementation. And like I said, it is statically coded, and it is this that is hashed, and it forms the previous hash in block number 2, also referred to as 1, the second block essentially. So that's it for the structure of a block in blockchain. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If there's a few concepts that you didn't quite grasp in this video, feel free to rewind, check them out again. And as usual, I look forward to seeing you in my next lesson.